Hi everyone, it's Alia, and today's video is a tutorial on how to mask a cake without doing the crumb coat. If you don't know what a crumb coat is, it's basically a very thin layer of buttercream that seals in all the crumbs so that they don't show up in the final design. I'm going to show you guys how I skip that step with American buttercream and Swiss meringue. So we're going to get started with American buttercream. You want your cake to first be stacked and chilled. Take a big spoon of buttercream and plop it on top. I always do more than I think I need, and then start spreading it out with your large offset spatula. You want to flatten it out like you normally would, but make sure you're keeping a bit of thickness there. And you want the buttercream to go over the edge of the cake. Make sure it's not too much though, otherwise it will just fall. When you get to this stage, you can start spreading and smoothing that out on the sides. Again, just being gentle and making sure you're not doing this so hard that you're scraping the cake or touching the cake. Basically, you don't want to touch the cake at all. You're just moving buttercream around. As you can see, I just flattened out my top once again so that it was all nice and smooth. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I smooth out the sides. Now, to cover the bottom half of the cake, I'm going to scoop a big heap of buttercream onto my offset spatula, like this, and then I'm going to touch it to the cake and start spreading it out. I'm using a good amount of pressure, but not so much that it's picking up crumbs and buttercream when I take my spatula away. Remember, you're not trying to touch the cake, you're just moving buttercream on the cake. You might also notice that every time I spread the buttercream, I lift off my spatula in the opposite way that I was spreading. I don't know how helpful that is, but I think it helps a little bit to not pick up buttercream and crumbs when you take your spatula away. So I'm just continuing the process, covering every bit of cake that I see until it's all covered, and then I'm going to go and take my bench scraper and smooth it all out. Since we put on a thicker layer of buttercream, you might have to do a few more scrapes than usual. But other than that, just do this how you normally would when decorating a cake. One thing that I always do to test the thickness is I will stick the tip of my bench scraper in the buttercream and see how deep it went. That lets me know how many more scrapes I should be doing. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're a beginner to cake decorating, I wouldn't recommend trying this right away. I would do crumb coats until you get the hang of masking and the motions and the skill and technique, and then try giving this a shot. Because if you guys watch Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, you'll know that she's been decorating cakes for years, and when she first tried to do this, she struggled. And I did too. I'd been decorating cakes for, I don't know, maybe 3 years before I started doing this, and it completely changed my life. It saves so much time. But it did take me a few tries before getting the hang of it. Basically, don't expect to succeed on the first try. If you do, that's amazing and I'm so proud of you, but if you don't stress about it. As you can see here, once I finished masking this cake, I was able to go ahead and decorate it right away. And this design is one of our signature cake designs at Happy Cakes. It's called Girls Love Pearls, and it is one of my favorites to decorate. So I'm going to show you guys another video of me masking a cake in American buttercream, but this time I'm using 2 different colors. So you can do this if you are wanting to make an ombre and do 2 or 3 or even 4 different colors. It's the same thing, but you're gonna switch colors halfway through. So here you can see I'm starting with my first color of buttercream, which is blue. I put a lot on top and then I smoothed it out so that it went over the edge of the cake, and now I'm just pushing that in so that it doesn't fall down. Then I'm going to take a big scoop of buttercream onto my offset and apply it very thickly. Apply it in a thick layer on the cake on the top half, making sure that I don't pick up any crumbs. I think the most important parts of this process would be the motions of the spatula and the pressure. Those 2 components work in unison, and you have to be very careful to avoid disaster. Just takes lots of practice, you'll be fine. So now you can see I'm switching to my second color to cover the bottom half of the cake. Again, it's the same process as before, I just switched halfway through. So on this last scrape here, you can see that I took off too much buttercream, and now you can see the cake in a few places, right there and right there. If this happens to you, it's no big deal. It's an easy fix. Just take some more buttercream on your offset and just spread it over wherever you can see the cake, and then just scrape over it. In this clip here, I kind of just spread it around the whole bottom half of the cake and then continued scraping, but I have done it before in just like 1 or 2 spots and was able to scrape it perfectly fine. And there we go, it's all fixed. Now I'm just gonna go and clean up the top edge of the cake, and then it will be ready to be decorated. And that, my friends, is how I mask a cake without doing a crumb coat with American buttercream. Now we're gonna move on to Swiss meringue. With American buttercream, we work top to bottom. Now we're gonna do the opposite and work from the bottom to the top. Scoop up some buttercream on your offset spatula, and then you're just gonna touch that to the bottom of the cake and pull up. I used just enough pressure so that it would stick to the cake, and then gently pulled upwards. Once it's on the cake, you can gently spread it out. I didn't even do a lot, just a little bit, because again, you wanna work in thick layers, and you don't want to be picking up any crumbs when you remove your tools. So I'm just repeating the whole process, going around the bottom of the cake, and I'm really making sure that I don't spread it too much because this buttercream's a little bit trickier for me to work with. So I'm just doing small movements and just applying more buttercream as soon as I need it. Once the bottom's all covered, I just gave it one final smooth and then I repeated the process above it. But here I had to be a little bit more careful because there was a bit of a gap between the buttercream dam and the edge of the cake, so I had to just apply more buttercream to make sure I filled in that space. Masking a cake in Swiss meringue buttercream takes me a little bit longer than when I do it with American buttercream because I find that I can't spread the buttercream as easily because it doesn't like to stick to your tools, if that makes sense. I know this buttercream is more popular, but everybody has their preferences, and I think that American buttercream is better for decorating, and I think it tastes better because I have a big sweet tooth. So now that we have all the sides covered, I'm gonna put some buttercream on top and start smoothing that out just like normal. This time I don't have to let it go so far over the edge because most of it's already covered anyways. And I think we were running out of buttercream on this day, which is why I scraped the sides and then used that buttercream to cover the rest of the top. But I filmed this a while ago, so I might be wrong. I don't really remember. Usually I would just cover the whole thing and then scrape the sides, but for some reason in this clip I'm not doing that. But it's fine, it still worked out. As you can see, I put a little bit over the edge and then I just smoothed that out like I did before with the American buttercream. I did have to add a little bit more here and there just to cover all the gaps, but in the end, it all worked out. Once I finished smoothing out the sides with my bench scraper, I just cleaned up the top edge and then that's it. Super simple, but also takes some practice process. But again, I promise you this will save you so much time, especially if you're a cake business at home or even like an established business. This is worth a try. Even if you don't think it'll make that big of a difference, you can just give it a shot and you might be surprised. With some practice, you're able to do it on big cakes and small cakes. I hope this video was helpful, and if you try this out, I hope you're successful. Let me know in the comments if you guys want to see more tutorial videos like this, or more recipes or bakery videos. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Bye!